Hi, this is Mark at learnhowtogarden.com, and in the next 5 little segments of Learn How to Garden, we're going to talk about the big 5 winter crops, the big sort of 5 brassicas. We touched on this in the previous video, and this is the first of the 5, and in this one I'm going to cover kale. Now, a lot of people might think kale, it sounds almost like cattle food, doesn't it? It sounds fairly awful. But what you've got to think, Cavolo Nero, that terminally trendy sort of standby of London Italian restaurants, is a kale. It's a black Russian kale, you know. And the thing about kale that is brilliant is you don't have to take it all. You can pick 1 or 2 leaves at a time, use what you want, and it'll still keep growing. So it's a great crop, and it's why it's my first of the sort of 5 that I would say, if you're not growing brassicas at all, make sure that you grow some kale. And we're going to put our kale in our no-dig bed. We've cleared the space at the end of the bed, we've taken a couple of beetroot out, we've taken out the broad beans, which means that there's a lot of nitrogen. Beans fix nitrogen, and all brassicas love nitrogen. And I believe that one of the reasons brassicas like no-dig beds is they're quite dense, they're quite heavy, and a lot of brassicas like to grow in quite dense soil. So the 2 I would recommend you grow, the first is Cavolo Nero. It's a brilliant plant, makes wonderful sauces, real winter sauces, quite, you know, robust sauces. And the other one is this little beauty, and this is called red boar. You can pick the leaves at this size, they'll be great in your salads, but as it gets bigger, it gets this massive architectural plant. If you were going to plant this, as I've said in my chaos theory planting, in with your flowers, best to plant these at the back of the border. Simply because if they're at the back of the border, when you start to take these bottom leaves off, and the plant can grow this high, the plants in front of it will cover the bare stems. So it really is a great plant to get in the back of the border. And in our bed here, we're actually only going to put 3 across the bed because they're big plants. So we're actually going to have them about 1.5 foot, 18 inches apart. But you actually don't need your spork in the no-dig bed. You can use your fingers. That's what I love about sort of deep beds, no-dig beds. The actual sort of soil is nice and friable. And what we're going to do is put 3 across, so we come in a couple of inches, make a small indent, take one of these beautiful Cavolo Neros, pop him in and backfill. And I'm going to put 3 Cavolo Neros, and I'm going to put 6 red boar, purely because I love the colour. It'll give me lots of colour in this bed. They'll be wonderfully architectural, and they're at one end of the bed, which means that I can add compost to the rest of the bed as we clear it. You can probably see just to the right of you, left of me, our French beans. They really have taken a battering. On the allotment here, we are surrounded by fields, and although we have rabbit netting, obviously we had a very small hole and a very small rabbit, but a very small rabbit was very keen on French beans, so that's why they're all looking a bit poorly, but the flowers are coming and I'm sure we'll still get a crop. But back to our kale. So simply in it goes, back and push down. And once we've planted this, we're then going to water. So we're planted, just literally hand round, firmed in. I don't believe you have to put it in with your heel like the old books used to say. And then I'm going to water it with a very weak seaweed fertiliser. God, isn't the mewing of buzzards almost sort of, you know, one of the most romantic sounds you can hear when you're down the allotment. I'm going to water with a weak seaweed fertiliser. I think that really does stimulate the root growth at this point in time. No more fertiliser on here, but if I felt that it needed to be slightly limier, brassicas are one of those things that do like quite an alkaline pH. I'd use calcified seaweed, and we're going to do a slight little video blog just on calcified seaweed. It's not the same as a seaweed feed, so it's important we get differential, and you'll find that will pop up onto Learn How to Garden in the next few days. We don't need it in here, so water this in, and more or less, you know, they'll look after themselves. At this time of the year, you may get cabbage butterfly coming on them, and you can then spray that. I tend to spray with sort of liquid soap or a garlic spray as the first sort of line of attack in any of these things. But Hopefully I've never had club roots, touch wood, so we shouldn't be dealing with that. But if you have any of these problems, please email us at learnhowtogarden and we'll try and deal with them for you. So that's the first of the 5 brassicas, kale. If I was to choose one for you to grow, it would be the kales. Pick and pick again. It will work perfectly in your flower border, so you don't have to sort of put it down the allotment. It could be outside your front door. The easiest of the brassicas to grow by far, and I think the tastiest. And a lot of recipes out there. And this Cavolo Nero, trust me, this will taste infinitely better than that packet in Sainsbury's that's cost you more than you could possibly believe. And I only use Sainsbury's because that's my local. I suspect Waitrose and Tesco's and Morrison's and everybody else is just the same. So that's Mark from Learn How to Garden with his rant at the supermarkets if they don't put out a contract on me. I'll be here next time and we'll be talking about the second of the winter veg that I'd say you should plant, and that's cabbage.